Good evening, and welcome to this special election series of the live stream of the Sunset Park podcast. We are 7 days away from a very big election. And in case you haven't heard, early voting has also started. Now, our guest this evening is Rodrigo Camarena, who is running for city council to represent us in District 38. And we're going to bring on Rodrigo. Rodrigo, welcome to the live stream.
Hey, Rob. Thank you so much for having me.
So thank you so much for taking time. I know that you're on that home stretch, and the election is only 7 days away, and it seems like not so long ago you made the big announcement that you're running, and June 22nd seemed so far away, and here we are, 7 days away. Early voting has already started. How are you feeling? 7 days away from this election.
It's been a really beautiful experience. I feel proud of the team we created. I feel proud of the campaign we've run. We have, talked to tens of thousands of people, been at a lot of doors, and had a lot of phone conversations. It's really been an amazing experience. Our community is beautiful and so powerful and so diverse and knowledgeable. And it's just been an honor to get to know so many of our neighbors and to learn about their concerns, but also their hopes and their aspirations. It's really been an incredible experience. Oh, you're not, can you hear me, Rob?
Yeah. Yes, we're good.
Okay. There we go.
What has been the most fun part, or what have you liked the most out of? I know campaigns are difficult. It's a lot of work, long days, but what from the campaign have you enjoyed the most?
I think it's been building our policy with our neighbors. We have had a lot of conversations with a lot of leaders in our community about the issues that are most important to them. We spoke with dozens of leaders and activists and tenants when we crafted our housing platform, and we put that out late last year. We spoke to nonprofit leaders, immigrant organizers, workplace justice organizers, and small business advocates when we developed our recovery platform. And so I think, what we've learned is that this community is very knowledgeable. They have a lot of ideas. They know exactly what kind of future they want for themselves. And I think tapping into that knowledge and tapping into those aspirations has been what's been most impactful and just amazing. So I'm really proud of the policies that we've put out on our website that we've developed with our community, and we're going to release some more policies this week. So I'm really excited to share this as well.
What has been the most difficult?
I'll be honest with you. It's been the hardest part has been being away from my family. My family is everything to me. We had our son Diego at the beginning of the pandemic. The city shut down on March 17th, and he was born a couple days later. So I think it's been really tough to be juggling, parenthood plus a full-time job plus the campaign. So it's been, a big burden on my wife and family and partner, and she's really the unsung hero in all this, because I would not be able to do any of this without her support and my family's support. So that's been the toughest part, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? How that all works out, and how it just is, right? Like we do this for the future, for our kids, for our children, for our families, but there's a little bit of sacrifice that comes along with it, right? When you do community work, that sometimes we do spend less time with our families, and that makes it a little tough, a little difficult. But we do it for them. We do it for our children, and being out there, out in the district, speaking with neighbors, door knocking, getting to know the different concerns. that our neighbors have, the different issues that they would like for our local elected officials to work on. And the common ones that we hear are like housing, schools, jobs. But other than those, when you've been out there speaking to our neighbors, is there anything else that has come up other than like the common ones that we hear about often?
Yeah, I think certainly a concern around housing that's been a big issue, and that's really the reason that I got into this race after our work fighting against industry city rezoning, but also just hearing from so many tenants and people in our community that are being displaced and threatened to be displaced. Um, Obviously, the pandemic, disproportionately affected Black and Brown New Yorkers, immigrants, working families, and so that's come up a lot. But I think generally there's a sense that as a district, we've been neglected by the city. As a district, we don't get the same level of attention and support that our neighboring communities get. There's a sense that the trash doesn't come as often or isn't, cleaned up as frequently as it should be, that our streets aren't paved as regularly as they should be, that, you know, um, decisions are happening to this community without us being at the table to make them with the decision makers. So there's a real sense of feeling left out, of feeling forgotten, of feeling not included, and that as if things are happening to us as opposed to with us and for us. So I hear that and I feel that 100%. And like I mentioned, it's been really powerful to connect with our neighbors and leaders in this community and have them tell us, what they want to see when it comes to housing, what they want to see when it comes to just recovery, what they want to see when it comes to services and essential programs that keep communities safe, that keep families strong. So I think that's the thing that cuts across all of my conversations, a sense of not having agency and not really feeling like policy is reflecting this community's priorities and this community's preferences.
Yeah, that's you brought up some really interesting points, right? Something as simple but maybe not, like our streets not getting paved, right?
Yeah,
You walk around Sunset Park on any street and there's like potholes that are dangerous, that can cause accidents, whether someone steps into it or a car is driving by and its tire goes into it and then causes something, like a tragic accident. And I think sometimes these small issues that are maybe everyday issues have sometimes a bigger, quicker impact than
yeah,
like the housing, which is very important. Like housing, I think immigration, workers' rights. We are a community. We found out through well, we always knew, right, because of just being here. But this pandemic definitely demonstrated that our community is made up of essential workers who contribute so much to this city, who build all these new parks that we see in Manhattan, all these new high rises that go up day in and day out. It's our neighbors who are out there working and doing keeping this city together. And someone who contributes so much to the city should have nice paved streets, because
yeah,
our neighbors, regardless of immigration status, are taxpayers and contribute so much to this community. And that's one of the things that I've seen your work throughout the years, for a very long time, that advocacy for our immigrant communities is at the forefront of the work that you've been a part of for all these years. Can you tell us a little bit about that work and how you got started, and what moved you to be an advocate for our immigrant communities?
sure. I started this work over 15 years ago when I was 21. I came and I started volunteering at the Mixteca organization on 23rd and 5th in what is now called South Slope. Back then it was still called Sunset Park. Um, and that work really opened up my eyes to just the issues in Brooklyn around, being a newcomer, uh, finding yourself in a new city, in a new country, and the challenges that it comes with being undocumented, with being, uh, you know, from out of New York. I really connected with that. I'm an immigrant myself. I grew up uh, all over the U.S., but really, was born in Mexico and came here as a kid. So for me, the sense of not belonging, the sense of feeling marginalized, really resonated with me in the work that I saw at Mixteca, and has been the work that I've been committed to ever since then. So, I've been in immigrant advocacy for the last 15 years, whether as an organizer or in my current role where I lead a national immigrant advocacy network. But that's really, you can't fight for immigrant justice without also fighting for housing justice, without fighting for racial justice, for economic justice, for healthcare, health justice. So it's intersectional, the fight. It's really a fight um, for the dignity and well-being of everyone in this city. And it's a fight that I've been in for the last decade and a half. So, this community taught me that fight. This community showed me what it means to build power with people, with working people. And that's exactly what I want to do in the city council.
Um, what, if anything, when if you were to become our next council member, um, what issue do you feel is something that needs to be at the forefront that first day that Rodrigo takes office? If you were to become our next council member, that you said, I need to work on this on that first Monday when I show up to the office. What would that
Mm-hmm.
be?
Well, let's start with the legislative issue, and then we can talk budget and other priorities. But for me, it will be a priority to overhaul our land use process and how we do planning in New York City. We are the only major city without a comprehensive vision for how we should be developing this set of islands that we call New York City. So that's led to a lot of the challenges that we're dealing with now and that we saw come to the fore during the pandemic. So let me give you an example. The same communities that were worst impacted by the pandemic were the ones that saw major hospitals close in the last 25 years. These hospitals, in many cases, were converted to condominiums or shopping malls or just sold. Um, and we saw the challenge again when it came to our schools. Our schools couldn't open quickly enough. They didn't have the right equipment. The capital budget has been decimated. We didn't have enough space to properly social distance our people, our kids. So, that's a challenge around land use. We just haven't thought carefully about our needs in the long term, our needs for green spaces, which became so important during the pandemic, our needs for critical infrastructure like bike lanes, which became incredibly necessary during the pandemic as more people took to cycling, our needs around healthcare, access to care, around affordable housing, obviously. So many folks saw themselves not only not being able to pay rent, but having to choose between eating and paying rent or caring for their loved ones properly. So land use for me is a life and death issue. It is not just about, you know, whether I want a condo in my neighborhood or not. It's about it's about who we make the city for and who we're making it for in the long term. So I want to tackle land use from the get-go, and I've already been in discussion with a lot of like-minded council candidates that feel like this is a priority for them. So it's going to require a lot of work. It's going to require charter revision in most likely. But it's what I'm committed to do, and it's what I'm committed to take on because we can't go back to how things were. Again, I don't want to belabor this, but land use has led to the segregation that we see in New York City. It's led to our schools being completely um, segregated, both by income, but also by racial makeup, demographic makeup. It really decides everything when it comes to New York City and what it means to live here. So I think it's a big deal and a big legislative priority for me. And I'd be happy to talk about the budget and other things that are going to be a priority to me. But that's a big kind of legislative priority.
That's very important, and it's at times unimaginable, unbelievable that in the richest country in the world, people during a pandemic because of the turn the economy took, and the way the government took a really long time to help um, people, that our neighbors had to choose between paying rent or buying food. And I think no human being, not only here but anywhere in the world, should have to make a choice as difficult as that. As, do I pay for rent or do I buy food to feed my family? And I think it's an important issue, and it all comes to what you said about land
Yeah.
use, and how our land is used, and how it's decided on how it's used, has such a very big impact on the people living, especially in this community where our waterfront is so desired by
Hmm.
developers, and they will go to great measures to take advantage of this water generation, those that live here. And I saw your work with fighting the rezoning. I think you were at the forefront of that, and leading that fight. And for that, as a native person of Sunset Park, I that work for sticking up for the community, and making sure that that rezoning did not take place. So
Sure.
thank you
And
for that, Rodrigo.
absolutely. And it was truly the work of like Uprose and particular Working Waterfront Alliance and so many neighbors, Sunset Assembly, and so many groups that came to that fight, um, and saw that we could do better than what was on the table and being offered by Industry City. And I think that the this community's victory over that rezoning has now allowed us to think more broadly about how we want to develop that waterfront. We're welcoming the large, wind turbine assembly plant to the plot right in front of Industry City. That's going to create green jobs, good union jobs, and a lot of local hiring. But we have to be vigilant. We have to ensure that those jobs get to the right places. That project doesn't just become a money making scheme for the company that's coming in to that public waterfront. So we have a lot of potential as a community. We have a lot of potential as a district, and it's not going to come to us without a fight. We're going to have to ensure that the opportunities that are brought to this waterfront go to the people of this community. That developers and companies that operate in this district are accountable, are good neighbors, are people that want to build with us, and there's a lot of different developments coming to the waterfront even as we speak. The largest last mile distribution center in North America, by some reports, Steiner Studios, a project that's being built on public land and being managed by the New York City Economic Development Corporation. So there are billions of dollars of investments coming to our district. And it's really, really important that we don't lose sight of that we ensure that those investments are being optimized by the people of this community, that those investments are being, that there's transparency around that work. And so we're not done fighting for our community. We're not done fighting for a waterfront that is for the people of this district. And so I'm excited to continue that fight and to ensure that we get what's owed to us, and that we ensure that our kids and young people and adults in this community have a future where they can both live and work in this community and provide for their families.
And now we get to, I guess, the most important question of the evening as we close this segment. Why should we rank Rodrigo as our number one choice? Whether you go to vote early, because early voting has begun, or whether you go on Tuesday, June 22nd, 7 days away, why should we rank you as our number one choice?
Yeah, I am so humbled and honored and privileged, frankly, to be doing this. Again, it's not easy to run for office, and it really does take a family and a community that supports you. So I'm really lucky to have that. I think that that support network is built on 15 years of working in this community and fighting for this community. I didn't come to this work yesterday. I didn't come to this work after Trump was elected. I didn't come to this work during the pandemic. I've been doing this work for over a decade because it's what I it's what I'm I think best at, and it's what I get the most joy out of. So for me, fighting for immigrant justice, economic justice, housing justice is really part of my work and what I feel like I'm best at, given my history in those spaces. But I think a few differentiators. One, I'm the only candidate in this race that's actually worked in city government. So for me, going into city council won't be anything new. I've been at council hearings over the years. I worked in the Bloomberg and de Blasio administrations, helping small businesses after Superstorm Sandy, where I had to manage large federal funds and ensure that they got to the right businesses. So managing a recovery process is something that I'm well familiar with, and something that's going to be really important for our next council member. I'm an organizer. I'm an activist. I'm someone that understands the needs of our most vulnerable neighbors and is ready to fight for them and take on powerful people. I voted against Mayor de Blasio when he put me on the rent guidelines board and wanted me to raise rents. And I did that proudly because I knew it was the right thing to do. And that cost me my role in the rent guidelines board. I fought powerful landlords and tenant and private equity companies that are seeking to create short-term gains for themselves and at the cost of the long-term needs of our community. And I'm proud and happy to do it again. So for me, taking on powerful people is not anything new, and we're going to need someone in that office that knows how to fight for the most vulnerable in our community and has a track record of doing that loudly and proudly. So if you want a fighter, if you want someone that has experience in government that brings a lifetime of work to this role, then rank Rodrigo number one when you vote this week or when you vote on June 22nd.
Rodrigo, thank you very much for taking time from your busy schedule. It's the last 7 days of this campaign, and thank you so much for being here for telling us a little bit more about what you've learned throughout the campaign and what your vision is, and what you want to work on should you become our next council member. And we will be continuing to bring you these election series special episodes as we get closer to the June 22nd date. We will have the other candidates on as well, so that they can tell us how they're doing in this campaign and how they're feeling as we get closer to the election. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you later this week on another episode. Thank you very much. Buenas noches.